Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson and welcome to Microsoft Project Made Easy. Today we are going to be looking at resource over-allocations and resource leveling, what they are and how we can remedy them when they occur. This is the first an introduction to this topic. It's a pretty deep topic, so we will go fairly light today and then we'll give you another section in the coming weeks. Okay, so let's get started. I have this practice schedule here, and the way that you know that you've got a resource over allocation is in the indicator column. That's this column over here. You will see what looks like little red Martians or little red people standing up. And what that's signifying, if you hover over it, it'll say this task has over allocated resources. And it says right click for options. Probably not where I would necessarily go for that. Where I would go is, first off, I'd want to know what resource is over allocated. In this sample that I put up here, I purposely put several resources on an activity. Ideally, you want to have one resource on an activity. That's probably the first rule as a best practice, because if you have an activity, it's best if you can hold one party accountable for that. In certain situations, it may not make sense to do that, and so in those cases, like here, I've got several people on the same activity. They would be working collaboratively on this particular activity. So I can see that I've got these red men, which means they're over allocated, and I know that's in the indicator column. If you don't see the indicator column on your schedule, it might be that the schedule is moved to the left and you're missing it, so you just have to scroll on the bottom. Or of course you can insert the indicator column into your schedule by going insert column, typing I for indicator and clicking on it, and it would insert it. There's no reason why I'd want it twice though, so I'll get rid of it. I'm going to go to the resource sheet. So I'm going to right click here and go to the resource sheet. And on the resource sheet you can see all of these resources are over allocated. So there's quite a few of them on this particular schedule that have over allocations on them. Now what I could also do here is I could filter this just to only show me the resources that are over allocated. So I could go where it says no filter, and I could go resources, and where it says over allocated resources, I could click on that, and then that will only show me the resources that are over allocated. It's a good way of, shortening down your list if that's the case. You just want to look at the ones that are resource over allocated, for example, and then you'd have to work through them one by one. Now I'm going to go to no filter here again. I'm going to slide to the left, and I'm going to go back to my Gantt chart. Now, the other thing I could do with this is I could take a look at this in a split view. So if I go to the task tab, I could go to where it says details, click on details. People don't often know that you can do that. You can split your screen and you can slide to the left, right click, and down here where it says resource graph, you can click on resource graph, and then you can click on one of the activities that is over allocated. So in this case, I can see that particular resource and what's going on in this particular area. So I can see here that I have assigned 150%, right? So I've got basically 150%, and I've assigned that resource project manager here 50% of the time and 100% of the time on these two activities. Right? If it doesn't say a percentage, that means it's 100%. 100% means one activity fully dedicated to it, or half that time is dedicated by this project management resource. All right, so if I wanted to fix this in this particular case between the different activities. Now I'm currently in submit bond, so maybe I'm over on one a little bit. So here we got the same thing going on. I've got the project manager and I've got project management 50%. So maybe, you know what, maybe I decide here, well, I'm going to just assign the project manager 50% of their time to this activity. So if I go here and I go to my resource screen and I click here, so it's picked up this screen, I'm going to go to where it says assign resources, and I can see what I've assigned. So I've assigned the general manager 25% and the project manager 50%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this allocation to 50%, right? And I've got this little red guy here as a result of that. So I'm going to change that to 50% from 100%. Now when I did that, it got rid of the over-allocation over here. It also lengthened this activity accordingly, right? Because it's going to say, well, you only got this project manager now working on it half the time. So you originally said it was going to take 2 days, so now it should take 4 days. That's the effort-driven side. And when you're trying to level out resources, that's usually what you're battling, right? How busy is somebody doing this activity? If you're going to say, well, they're only going to be half the time on that activity, it's going to logically lengthen that out unless you say, no, 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 I only want this to, it's only going to take them half the time, and you could shorten it to whatever it is that you want. But if you don't do anything, it'll just do it purely linear fashion. And we've talked about that in previous videos when we talked about effort-driven scheduling. But when you're leveling, that's what goes on with the leveling process. And you could go through these one by one, looking at them logically, what's going on, and what do I have to do to get rid of the over-allocations? Like, where is this occurring and who is it occurring on? Like, and if you see this says GC General Manager, well, maybe it's not occurring on that resource. Maybe it's occurring on the GC Project Manager. Remember, some of these activities have more than one resource assigned to them. And then you can see, oh, this is over-allocated here. And so if you want to get rid of this one, now you've got to be looking at this over-allocation and this over-allocation where they overlap each other. The other way, of course, you could do it is you could go into the resource sheet and change the percentage of somebody on a project. Now, we're only talking about one person here, the way it's done. If we're talking about project manager, you're limited with that, right? Though you can only have one person working on it, so that would be 100%. That would be one. You can't make the one person be 200%. So if that's the case, you really can't do anything there. On the other hand, if it was a laborer or something like that, you could always bring another laborer. So you could change the amount of units you have to 200%, and that would resolve the issue, or 300%, whatever you need. So manually is what I strongly suggest you do, and I think it's pretty useful, just to go back over that, to be able to split your screen. If you go to the Task tab, you click on Details. If you click it twice, that'll get rid of it. If you click it once and then you slide to the left down in the lower portion, right click, and now you can get your resource graph, which is the histogram, which would show you what's going on with the various resources that are assigned to whatever activity you've clicked on. And you can scroll through and see, where are they over allocated? Okay, what do I have to do with that to fix it? Very often, that's going to lengthen out your project schedule unless you do other things. So you got to be cognizant of that. But that is probably the best way to go at it in a very detailed way, step by step, getting rid of all the resource over allocation so that you shouldn't see any more resource over allocations listed in any of the chart. And you can always go back to the resource sheet, which I'll just get rid of the split here. So I'll just go to Details once, twice. I'll slide to the left, go to my resource sheet. And when you cleared them all, none of these will be in red. So that's done. So that's the normal way to do it. Some of you might get a little bit clever and you might find that, there is this tool. If I click on resource and it says leveling options, oh, that looks cool. And you could go leveling options and it says automatic. I like the idea, automatic. All right, because it probably would have, it's only an automatic because I was in the file before. It was in manual. So click on automatic, nice. And leveling can adjust individual assignments on a task, can it create splits, level manually scheduled tasks. If any of them are listed in manual mode, it'll also level them. Okay, let's try that. Level all. And what's my finish date? August 23rd. Yeah. Okay, let's level them all. So I leveled them all, and what was it? It was August something. Now it's September something. So my project is taking much longer, but I got no problems. Oh, problem solved. Isn't this wonderful tool? The biggest problem with this tool, though, is that it does adjustments just to get rid of the leveling. Like, it'll split tasks like this to say, okay, well, this overlaps here, so we'll just split it. That can come in later. But this is not artificial intelligence at work here. It's just Microsoft Project doing a bunch of things to get rid of the over-allocation. And you got to somehow figure out, what did it do? Why did it do it? And does that make sense for your project? I don't think, for the most part, anybody wants to do that. So my advice is to make sure that your project is in manual mode, and that that is the way that it is left, so that it will not auto schedule. I don't want anything to automatically level things for me, so that it's in manual mode, and that I identify them and I fix them one by one for what makes sense on my project. And that's what you really want to do. Because remember, what you're saying with this is that you've applied more resources than you said was available. So if I go back to my resource sheet as an example, everything is at 100%, right? Everything is at 100%. If I change this to 300%, that will probably get rid of that, right? So that means, though, when I say that, I'm saying I could get 3 carpenters on that if I needed to, so I can cover off that resource. I shouldn't put that to 300% if there's no way that I'm going to be able to get 3 carpenters, because that way it'll flag it for me, so I know there's an issue with my resources and my plan. It's not going to happen the way I want. It's used as a flagging tool. But I certainly wouldn't leave everything at 100%. If I have, 10 carpenters available, I would set it at 1,000%. So that would equal 100% times 10, 1,000%. That's how many I have available to do that particular activity. So that's the aspect of resource leveling. You don't want to leave things over allocated. You want to know why they're there, and then you want to methodically adjust things and fix them so it doesn't cause any problems. The other reason too, you don't want to have over allocations is if you've got one person like the GC project management or project manager, and you're saying that they're 100% on this and 100% on that. Well, if they're one person, they can't do all of both. Plus, if you're doing it by work hours, you've got them listed as work in the resource sheet. You will find that you will find that if they're listed as work, it's going to double count the hours. It's going to count, well, they're working up here and they're working down there, but if they're one person, they can't be, right? They definitely could be if it was a carpentry crew, but not if it is, say, a project manager. Keep that in mind when you develop your schedules, and that will be a lot more helpful when you're actually doing this. The other thing is, I would be watching this as you go when you develop the schedule, because if I see an over-allocation, I would be working on fixing it as it occurs, rather than have a whole pile of over-allocations at the end that I have to go through. Because usually when I'm first doing it, I'm really in the thought process of exactly what this activity is and who it involves. And then if I put another one and there's an over-allocation, I can really better, I'm on that topic, right? And I'm thinking on it. I don't have to go back, what was going on there, what exactly? Makes it a little bit easier and more productive that way. So I hope this gives you a good intuitive sense of how resource leveling works and resource allocations. I'm going to cover this in more depth in some other videos as well. And if this is a little bit over your head, go back and watch some of my other videos on applying resources and the fundamentals of how you set up a resource sheet, as this is incorporating a lot of things all at once. So hopefully that helps you that way. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see many more on Microsoft Project or in construction management, please subscribe to my channel. You can look at the different playlists and you'll see under the headings the various topics and levels of detail. So I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day. Don't forget to click subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.